Going on, everybody? This is James A. Paxson with my partner Cameron Gwynn. That was Waiting for the End by Linkin Park. It's my favorite song by Linkin Park. For those who do not know, which would be pretty hard not to know, Chester Bennington, lead singer of Linkin Park, committed suicide last Friday. Lead singer died at 41. Linkin Park was always one of my favorite bands growing up. I like all different kinds of music. My favorite type of music is country music, but I love hip-hop, rap, I love rock, I love alternative, I love country, I love oldies. And each kind of genre satisfies me or makes me feel in a different way. Linkin Park was definitely one of them. I can honestly say I listened to a lot of Linkin Park after my mom died, and it was one of the bands that actually made everything make sense. And I don't know of a lot of bands that made that happen at all. Partner Cameron Gwynn, Linkin Park.
I mean, you encapsulated pretty much everything about them. I'd say they're our generation's band.
Absolutely.
To be honest,
because they did everything.
They did, and all their songs you could tell came straight from the heart. Like everything that they sang, everything that they talked about in their music was stuff that they went through and lived, which really hit home for some people. I know for you, it helped you with that. It helped me when I was going through hard times with like my parents getting divorced and stuff like that.
Right.
All that.
It made tragedy make sense.
It made it make sense. It made it easier to see that these people were going through similar stuff. But the thing I wanted to say real quick about Chester Bennington is he was, honestly, he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
We can say that he was a really, really good guy. He dealt with a lot of issues.
Right.
He really did. He's come out and been straightforward with it, that he didn't have the best life growing up. He's even said that when he's alone on his own, his worst enemy is his mind. That's what he would always say, is that his worst enemy was his mind. So hopefully he's at peace now.
Yeah.
But that's really sad to see him go.
Absolutely. Someone who captured the music world by storm. Definitely sad to see Chester go. A lot of people talk about they remember the day that Michael Jackson died and Prince and all that. I'd say Chester is the biggest musician that I remember.
He's our Michael Jackson.
Okay.
I'd say.
We're going to start the show here. James Paxson, Cameron Gwynn, Cam Jam Experience here on a very weird Monday here, weather-wise. It was sunny this morning, so I thought, hey, let's get the show going. I'll go home. We'll do something outside. I don't know. Maybe play some catch, walk the dog, and then next thing I know, rain kind of turned over. Kind of like the Tigers season. As we start, I will talk about the Tigers. I'll give some wise words to Al Avila. I'll give my little bit of tidbit on what the Tigers should be doing, have to be doing, all that stuff. We'll talk a little bit of baseball. Then we'll get into the Ole Miss coach hooker call tragedy. I don't know what you want to call that. It's all
not a tragedy. It's just stupidity.
We'll go with that. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Detroit riots. But to start, most of the time we kind of try to keep things Detroit, state of Michigan, nationally. So this is more of a Detroit show. And unfortunately, it will be very one-sided here. Detroit Tigers, you're a week away from the deadline. The trade deadline to do something useful. So I beg you, do something useful. You have to. It's getting sad. I'm going to give Avila, who's the general manager of the Detroit Tigers, this. And that is you did something. Because you have to do something. Before we dissect the trade, dissect all the moves he has to do, he has to do something. I don't care what he does in a week, but you have to do something. You could trade Justin Wilson. You can trade Justin Verlander. You can trade Alex Avila. You can trade Justin Upton. You can trade Ian Kinsler. You can trade Jose Iglesias. Any of those names you could trade. You have so many options out there. Do your job and do something. You can't do nothing anymore. I don't know how you think you're going to satisfy the city of Detroit and Tigers fans when you do absolutely nothing. You are fourth place in the AL Central, 6.5 back from Cleveland, and you are a ways away from the wild card. 5 games, and you are not in the top 5 running for a wild card race. You are nothing, which means this season's over. It's done. You will do nothing to make the season right. You will do nothing to save the season. You will do nothing except maybe inch into the wild card at best this season.
If they're lucky.
So, here's what you got to do. You have to get meaningful prospects, meaningful young talent for these older guys. I love Justin Verlander, one of my favorite players, but you can get a lot for him.
You can.
I like Michael Fulmer. You could get a lot for him. You have to do something, Al, or it's just not going to work. My opinion, you don't have a good trade deadline, your ass is canned. This is ridiculous. You did nothing last offseason. Besides signing back his son, he did nothing at all. Okay?
Well, he said he wanted to sell and then didn't. That was a good front.
Okay, that's like a guy who's selling you a car that says it's going to work for a while and then it breaks down in 2 weeks.
Or
That's the equivalent.
Or when you're trying to sell something on one of those apps and the person says, I'm interested, and then doesn't message you back ever again.
Right. Not like they message you a couple times or they said they're very interested or, wow, I always wanted one of those. They basically messaged you and said, that's cool. I want it. That's it.
Right.
All right? Al, you got to do something. Your job's on the line right here. There are many options. All right? So here's the only thing I'll say before I get into this JD Martinez trade. Thank you for doing something. You did something, so I'll give you points there. Now, let's get into the trade. You didn't do a good job, Mr. Avila. The GM for the Detroit Tigers gave away JD Martinez, who is an amazing player, who had to go for prospects. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But you should have kept him if this is all you were going to get. 25-year-old, amazing player. Anything better than JD Martinez right now on the market before he was traded? Not much. Top 5.
Not much. Just for hitting, though. He's a liability out in the field, honestly.
He's a liability out in the field, but
yeah,
he's an amazing
I'd say
hitter.
his hitting makes up for it, though.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. His hitting definitely makes up for it.
I mean, he wasn't even here for the beginning of the season, comes back and hits a home run the very first pitch he sees. And then just goes on a hitting spree. Like,
right.
That's what the man does. His bat is always alive.
Right. Excuse me, I said 25. I meant 29. I don't know why I said 25. Messed up there. He's 29 years old, and his average for this year was 3.05 when he played for the Tigers.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm going to go with yeah. All right? He did unbelievable this year. He had 16 home runs, 39 RBIs, and he was injured for most of the beginning of the season. All right? So what you do is you go get 3 halfway mediocre infielders. To start, you got 22-year-old Dawel Lugo. He began as a shortstop until his body filled out and he moved to third base. All I'm reading right now about the trade is from Anthony Fennick of the Detroit Free Press. He hits .290 in 2 seasons in Double-A. He will report to Double-A Erie. 22 years old in Double-A. What are the chances he becomes an all-star player?
I have no idea. I'd say they're kind of slim. From what I've been hearing on 97.1, they're saying that he's an amazing fielder, kind of like an Iglesias type probably, where his bat's not really amazing, but he's a little speedy and has an amazing, they're saying gold glove caliber defense, but I haven't seen the kid play, so I don't know.
Well, this is all from people.
Right, exactly.
But I want to make things clear. You gave away one of the best tradable assets 2 weeks before the trade deadline.
Right. You couldn't have waited and held on for a minute?
Well, let's just start here by basis. Do you have any idea, as a guess, where the Arizona Diamondbacks are in the prospect system?
Are they top 5?
No.
They're not? Bottom 5.
They are bottom 5. It says on minorleagueball.com.
Oh, wow.
They are 29th. They are right above the Miami Marlins.
Wow.
All right. So if you really want to trade some people for good teams.
Yeah, why don't we go over and look at Atlanta?
Let me show you something. If you wanted to help people for a playoff push, I don't know, you got the Yankees.
Yeah.
You got the Pirates.
Yeah.
Rockies
Rockies
Brewers, Cardinals, Cleveland Indians. All within the top 10. All have a chance to make the playoffs this year. All would have traded decent prospects for JD Martinez. And instead you called Arizona. Yes, they have a playoff push, but they are 29th in the prospect game in Major League Baseball. They are second to last. They are not crap. They are the flies on the crap. So what you're doing right now is unbelievably ridiculous. And all I keep hearing about this trade is, 1, he did something. 2, he did something good. And 3, he got young prospects. Cameron, this simple question has always been asked to me in the game of baseball. Do you want talent over experience if you had to pick one or the other, or you would like a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. You need a little bit of both. You need the talent. You need some experience. Like essentially what we see when in all the other major sports like football, basketball, you give players 3-4 years in the league and then they start to show that experience. That's what you need in baseball as well. You need to know what you're going to be up against with pitchers. You know the fields. You need to know the stadiums that you're going to be playing in. And the only way you get to know that is through experience.
My opinion, and this is based on just watching baseball in all of my 20 years and not being a scout before I say this. For you to be good in the major leagues at hitting, you have to be hitting 300 in the minors.
Oh, at least.
None of these guys.
No, you need to hit at least 350
of these guys are hitting 300 in Double-A. One is only in Double-A. The other, Single-A, he will go to Lakeland. And the best one is where in the Dominican Summer League he was hitting 350. He's 18 years old. He will report to Rookie Level Golf Course League. This is the best option, and Anthony Fennick from the Free Press said, there are too many variables with King to consider him anything more than a lottery ticket. You wasted J.D. Martinez 2 weeks before the deadline
on a lottery ticket.
On a lottery ticket and 2 other guys who could basically be Brandon Inges. Is all I see.
That's essentially what it sounds like he got.
That's all it sounds like. You mentioned 97.1. That's the radio station here in Detroit. Nobody on that station, we're not going to say names, just nobody on the station has said anything good about the trade other than he did something. So I'm going to give him credit, as I did at the beginning. He did something. Congratulations, you did something.
You didn't do a good something.
You have to do something else.
You need to do
You have a week before the trade deadline. I need to see some of these guys go for young guys if you want to start playing good baseball in 2 years or 3 years. You're not going to do anything this year. You have the potential to do something next year because that's a new year. But do something. You have a lefty who can throw in the mid-90s as a reliever and doesn't fail much. Of course, he'll fail sometimes, but doesn't fail much. Justin Wilson.
That's what everybody in the league wants, is a lefty reliever to come out of the bullpen and give you some good innings.
As John Hamm said from $1 Million Arm, lefty with juice is good.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody wants that.
Everybody wants that.
Let me propose a question to you real quick, okay? You mentioned Verlander being on the market, obviously. You and I both know that he's on the market. There's reports that the Cubs want to take him and take all of his contract, give him all the money that he is owed, but we don't get anything in return. I think that sounds meh, in my opinion.
I think it's sad that that's the best option we have. That's the best option I've heard about Justin Verlander.
So far, yeah, because so far it's been...
His contract is so huge.
Big, nobody wants to take it
Justin
over.
Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what all of them are? Guys with too huge of contracts for anyone to bite at and guys who aren't performing well enough for us to really love.
The Tigers did it to themselves. The
guy makes over $25 million a year.
Yes.
And he's one guy who plays once every 5 days.
Yes.
I'm not going to get into too much money because they all make too much money at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
But to get on with it, you gave this man an amazing contract for 6 years. He did so many great things to Detroit. He's an amazing person. 2 no-hitters, Cy Young Award. But get the money out of here. I have no problem with that. Honestly, you know what? I would.
You take it?
I'd take it.
You take it?
Justin Verlander's my favorite Tiger. He's an amazing pitcher. But at this point, we need to spend money somewhere else.
The only way...
These guys in the minors,
honestly,
Cam, you give them $1 million, $2 million.
Dude,
if you really do the math, that's 10 players to the equivalent of one Justin Verlander, who plays once every 5 days, who is a starting pitcher, who is not making this team win. We are under 500. We are 6 games from the American League Central race.
The only way I would want to take that is if we deal Wilson before and get something. If we get something good for Wilson, then I'm fine dealing Verlander.
At this point, I will be satisfied if he does something.
Right.
Something that makes me just go, okay, Al, you tried. I'm not looking for anything amazing. I'm not looking for Dombrowski. I'm not looking for Epstein. I'm looking for something that proves he did something. If he does nothing, he's gone. If he does trash, he's gone. If he does decent, but we're still not happy and it doesn't help, he's gone.
Will he really be gone, though? I don't think so. I don't have faith in this Tigers organization to get rid of people.
No,
we've
he won't
we've
be
seen
gone.
Osmus for a year too long. We've seen Avila, in my opinion,
Here's
for
a
too
question
long.
I want to ask you that I hope every Tigers fan asks themselves. With a different manager, would the record be higher, within 5 games of the same, or lower?
I think it'd be 5 games higher.
I think so.
Yeah.
I honestly think so.
I honestly
This
think so,
guy
too.
makes stupid decisions.
That's how it works for baseball. You need a good, smart manager. You really do. You see it all the time with a multitude of different teams. Once they get a different manager, they start playing better.
I do think this team needs a different manager. This team needs some prospects. And meanwhile, they have a week. July 24th. When the show comes out, it'll be July 25th. You have 6 days. And near the trade deadline, they start chirping. They start wanting. They start getting desperate for good players.
That's all they sound like is desperate.
How do you
That's what
not
it
sound
sound-
desperate
I-
with a team like this, Cam?
That's what you got to sound better though. They sound
Yes.
so desperate. So desperate. And
Let
the
me- let me
Diamondbacks
ask you-
looked at them. No, this is what happened, dude. We're so desperate, the Diamondback looked at us and kind of just sneezed.
You-
We're like, ha, that's funny.
So you think Avila proposed this to the Diamondbacks?
I think the Diamondbacks came to us with that, and he said, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, then that's sad.
That's what I think
That's sad.
happened.
That's worse than being desperate. That's being easy.
Yes, exactly. It's being way too easy. It doesn't make any sense to me why you would deal JD for what we got. I would have been fine with 2 good minor league players from St. Louis. That would have been sweet. Too bad St. Louis isn't really in the market for players like that. But like the Rockies, the Brewers, teams like that, they have a good minor league system. Why not try to deal with
My problem
them?
is, why are you trading an amazing player for a 20 and 18-year-old? One's in single A, one's in basically summer ball, as I'll say.
It's dumb.
None of these guys are in AAA, AA. None of these guys have amazing futures. You went to the bottom of the prospect league to give a guy away to say you did something. That's all you were proving to me. Do something more, make it good. I don't care who you trade anymore. There are no untouchables on this team.
No.
There is not,
No.
okay?
Everybody's up for grabs.
Because you have to do something.
You have
it's
to.
this simple to me. If you're in a relationship with a person and it's not working, you talk it out. If that's not working, you go to counseling. If that's not working, you separate. Okay?
Yeah.
You do something if something's not working. Because what happens if it's not working and you do nothing? It will
keeps
continue
not
to
working.
not work.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the bigger picture. Let's kind of stray away from the Tigers. Let's talk about some teams that are actually contending now. Your pick for the World Series champs, Cleveland.
Yes.
They're looking pretty good.
Worst part about it is that they're only a game and a half over the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
Coming out of nowhere. I want
Yeah.
to talk about, real quick, for a couple minutes before we get on a different subject, the big battles in the division right now for first-place teams. AL Central, Cleveland Indians, Kansas City Royals. Really close. Cleveland started playing good again.
Yeah, they kind of slacked off a little
Yeah.
bit, but yeah, they're looking like how they should be playing.
Okay, other one is AL East, Boston and Yankees. The best rivalry in baseball.
Dude, one of the best rivalries ever.
Definitely.
In any sport.
Okay,
Phew.
that's up there.
That's a good race.
Boston was your AL pick, to my knowledge.
I think so.
Yes. That was definitely your AL pick after the All-Star break. That's the one you picked.
I like Boston.
Okay,
I
and
like
they're
Boston.
having trouble with the Yankees. Okay.
Which makes sense.
Other one is the Cubs and Brewers. I did not think the Cubs would come back.
Dude, who thought the Brewers would be where they are, though?
Nobody.
Nobody.
These are all fun battles that should be watched. Cleveland, Kansas City, Boston, New York, Cubs, Brewers. Give me your pick for all three. Go.
Yankees, Cleveland, and the Cubs.
Perfect. Next order of business. Now, I will say this before we actually get into this. Who cares? That sounds terrible. And he's laughing because he already knows it because we already talked about it in our show prep. All right? Who cares? Okay. I'll continue. All right. Over the weekend, this is written by ESPN senior writer Mark Shabak. All right. Ole Miss head coach Hugh Freeze
I love that name. That's a nice name.
resigned effectively immediately, with the Rebels athletic director telling ESPN that the school officials found a pattern that include phone calls to a number associated with a female escort service. Cameron Gwynn, please tell me what Mr. Free's excuse is.
He accidentally called him. He totally
That's not a
accidentally
joke.
called him.
That's not
No,
any
that's
bias.
that's the first thing he said to the athletic director when they came to him and said, "Look, these are kind of sketchy numbers that you're calling." And then they reached back to when he first started at Ole Miss.
You want to know the
and
best
found
part?
those numbers
You
too.
want to know the best part?
It's on a college phone.
No, that's not my favorite part.
That's not your favorite part?
That's second.
That's my favorite part.
Look at the number. Some 313 number. The guy's in Mississippi and he's calling hookers in Detroit.
Wait, what? Where's that at?
You didn't see that?
Oh, I see it now. Oh my God.
Look in the article.
That's
ESPN,
amazing. That
the
is
writers
unreal.
don't want to research enough to really see it. But some 313 number, they're just knowing as not in Mississippi. The guy's calling 15 hours away to see if he can get some cheap prostitutes on Telegraph. Okay? That's the best part about this. They're not in Mississippi. I don't care if it's on a college phone. You call hookers on whatever phone you want.
I think they're on Van Dyke. Or Gratiot, maybe. 313 area code.
Yeah. You never knew that?
How the hell is that even possible for you to try to call somebody
to get
in Detroit to get some prostitutes for your players, I'm assuming is what he was doing.
To get back to the story.
That's awful.
Okay. Coach Freeze served our university well in many regards during his tenure. We simply cannot accept the conduct in his personal life that we have discovered. Freeze, who had $2 million left on his contract for this year, $5 million next year, and $5.15 million for 2019, will not be paid going forward. Freeze would have been fired if he was not resigned.
Yep.
Is what they told ESPN.
They would have had to fire him, is what they said. That's what the
Athletic
AD said in
director-
his press conference.
Athletic director for Ole Miss said, once we looked at the rest of the phone records, we found a pattern. Athletic director said he called this sad, unexpected, and he did not call this Ole Miss rebel material.
No. And the phone calls go all the way back to 2012. They looked at his history, his phone history, all the way back to 2012 and found a pattern of phone calls since 2012. Dude, you can't make this up.
I can't. This is
This is
honestly one of my
unreal.
favorite sports stories I've
This
ever
is
heard in my life.
unreal. I mean, okay, honestly, though, part of me, I don't want to say respects the man, but I'm glad that he resigned how he did, though. I'm glad that he did that.
What are you talking about? He
making
resigned
this-
because he was forced
I know,
to be
no,
fired.
well, yes,
He
but
resigned 5 days before
it
he was going to
would've-
get fired.
It made it. I don't know how to explain it the way I'm thinking of it, but he knew that he messed up. Essentially, is what I'm getting at, and he decided to take matters into his own hands and fire himself.
To end this very carefully, Freeze said on ESPN when the article was written before he resigned, "We call wrong numbers all the time." End quote.
Yep.
I cannot make up the quote. This is why we're talking about the story. One, to ask the simple question that I'm honestly asking. I'm not making a joke here. Who cares?
Wait,
cares?
just answer this question for me real quick.
Absolutely.
How many accidental numbers have you called in the past 5 years?
I'll say a handful to make it fair. I'll say a handful.
I'd say if I just received the number, maybe 5 times.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't gonna say 0 because
Right.
that's probably wrong. Okay, but you know what? I'm gonna say some things that's not gonna make you happy.
Oh,
all right.
God.
Ole Miss was one of the only 5 FBS programs in the country to make consecutive New Year's Six bowl appearances in the first 2 years of the college football playoff. Okay.
It's because their testosterone was all super high from those hookers.
Freeze had a 39-25 record in 6 seasons with the Rebels, including 19-21 against SEC foes. 19-21 is not a winning record, but he's versing Alabama, LSU,
Yeah.
Arkansas.
No, that's a pretty good
Every
record
year.
for going against those people.
Yes, they had a terrible season last year, which was 5-7, but before that they were 10-3. They had a Sugar Bowl win. Who cares? It's his personal life. It's out of town. I'm honestly asking why. I get the wrongness and I get the
Right.
moral obligations of it, but I'm honestly asking, who cares? The man's 47. He's an adult. He can get escorts if he wants.
As long as he's not getting them for the players. That's where you got to draw the line. If you're getting them for the players, then you're awful for doing that. But
I mean, Ole Miss has a history of having a lot of issues.
It's interesting. I don't know.
This story was hilarious. We had to bring it up because I love the quote that we call wrong numbers all the time. 2, that this happened to a major football university. And 3, I'm honestly asking you, why do people care? You're not harming anyone. You're not.
You're harming people's sensitivity is all it really is. People are just too sensitive about it.
Look, I'm very honest. Yeah, I don't want my football coach to call us
no,
sports.
definitely not.
But
if Harbaugh is calling us
hell,
sports, I don't want that.
6 bowl appearances in a row, New Year's Day. I mean, I'm sorry, he's winning. Well, I'm being honest. Why do people care?
I know.
There are so many more wrong things than a man who just wants to pay for pleasure.
Yeah.
There are so many wrong things.
It's terrible. All right, so let's get into the 50th anniversary of the Detroit riots.
Absolutely.
Now this is a very interesting story. Obviously, for those of you who know a little bit about history, this happened in 1967 on 12th Street. It's very violent. A lot of just chaos in the streets of Detroit.
Absolutely. In 1967, the Detroit riots occurred from July 23rd to July 27th. What a lot of people don't know is that it affected the city for 4 straight days.
Oh, yeah.
That's imagine your week starting next week, Monday to Thursday. A riot affected. I want to talk about this because this is a big deal in the city of Detroit, and also it's a big thing in history. And also, to get a third point in here, it made the Detroit Tigers a better team because they were fighting for the city. It showed that sports and politics, or sports and heartache, can stand together. What a lot of people don't know is that on one of the days of the riots, Willie Horton, who is an amazing Tigers player, ran in his jersey to start telling people to stop rioting. It's something that no one would ever do anymore.
No.
It showed so much amount of bravery.
There's so much courage and bravery that is just in that one man alone than there is in anybody in the league today, I'd say. Anybody in the major leagues today.
The result of the riots was 43 dead, 1,189 injured, over 7,200 arrests, and more than 2,000 buildings destroyed. The scale of the riot was surpassed in the United States only by the 1863 New York City draft riots during the American Civil War and the 1992 Los Angeles riots. The riot was prominently featured in the news media with television coverage, extensive newspaper reporting, and extensive stories in Time and Life magazines. The staff of the Detroit Free Press won the 1968 Pulitzer Prize for general local reporting for its coverage. The crimes reported to police included looting, arson, and sniping, and took place in many different areas of Detroit. For example, on the west side of Woodward Avenue, extending from the 12th Street neighborhood to Grand River Avenue, and as far south as Michigan Avenue and Trumbull near Tiger Stadium. Old Tiger Stadium, not Comerica Park.
Right.
East of Woodward, the area around East Grand Boulevard, which goes east to west, then north to south to Belle Isle, was involved.
And this is just... When you actually sit back and think about this, these were families, these were brothers just fighting, essentially. And then the police came in and the National Guard came in, and it was just a mess down there.
Here's something else I want to add. The city enacted a citywide curfew.
Yes, I just read that.
Prohibited sales of alcohol and firearms, and business activity was informally curtailed in recognition of the serious civil unrest engulfing sections of the city. This was significant white participation in the rioting and looting, raising questions as to whether the event fits into the classical race riot category. This is something that you can find on DetroitFreePress.com. It's some article that I honestly fell in love with that I read over the weekend, and it's a big history mark on the city. And I mean that as in this city definitely was affected by this to this day. To this day, 50 years later from the start of it. And it's an unbelievable story. People were scared, frightened, unbelievably terrified of what could happen all around the city. And for those who don't exactly know the city of Detroit, this is like a 30-minute walking distance of when this occurred.
Yeah.
Like, it went all over, and people were frightened. 2,000 buildings were destroyed.
And the city of Detroit's a big city too.
Very big city.
It was the whole city that was rioting essentially.
Yes.
And it stretched out to some of the metro area too, surrounding Detroit.
It's an amazing mark on history that I think people should know more about.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's very sad that a city could turn into that, but just sit back and think to yourself, the whole city was a war zone.
Yeah, essentially.
And keep in mind, the Tigers played a doubleheader against the New York Yankees. They kept playing baseball.
They did.
That shows you how sports can affect into people's minds, that it can be very different at times. It can be terrible. Race could have an issue. Religion could have an issue. Sex could have an issue. But sports is there for some people. It really is. And I hope people read this story on DetroitFreePress.com. And for the 50th anniversary of the Detroit riots, people sit back and realize that a whole city was a war zone. And look at how far people have come today.